In this video, I am going to challenge the very foundation of how you perceive reality. I am going to challenge the idea that your life is a series of random events, and instead propose that it is a scripted mathematical code waiting to be deciphered. But here is the difficulty. Your logical mind is trained to reject this. Your rational brain wants to call it coincidence. If I fail to convince you, you will continue walking through life blind to the signposts that the universe has desperately placed in your path. But if I succeed, you will never look at a clock, a date, or a chance encounter the same way again. It began in a small, suffocating room in Zurich. The year is roughly 1930. Carl Jung, the father of analytical psychology, is sitting across from a patient who is utterly stuck. She is a woman of extreme rationality, a fortress of logic. She has analyzed her trauma, dissected her dreams, and categorized her pain, yet she cannot heal. She is imprisoned by her own intellect. Jung is frustrated. He knows that unless she can embrace the irrational, the magical, and the unexpected, she will remain broken. She begins to tell him a dream she had the night before. In the dream, she was given a piece of jewelry, a golden scarab beetle. As she describes this, focused entirely on the logic of the dream, a strange noise interrupts the silence of the room. Tap, tap, tap. Something is hitting the window pane behind Jung. He turns. Hovering against the glass, trying to get in, is a large insect. Jung opens the window and catches the creature in his hand. It is a Setonia aurata, the common rose chafer, the closest living relative to the holy scarab beetle of Egyptian mythology found in these latitudes. He turns to the woman, holds out his hand with the shimmering green-gold beetle, and says, "Here is your scarab." In that moment, her rational mind shattered. The impossibility of the event, that the physical world would conjure the exact symbol of her inner psyche at the exact moment she spoke it, broke her defenses. This was the birth of synchronicity. Because the universe breached the wall of logic, she was able to heal. But for Jung, this was just the beginning of a terrifying descent into the mystery of numbers and time.
To understand why this moment terrified Jung, we must understand the world he lived in. Jung was a man of science. He was Freud's chosen heir. He was supposed to uphold the laws of cause and effect. In the scientific worldview, event A causes event B. If a beetle hits the window, it is because of wind, or light, or biology. It is not because a woman mentioned a dream. But Jung saw something that violated the laws of physics. He saw an a-causal connecting principle. Because he saw this, he could not unsee it. But the scientific community would destroy him if he spoke about magic. Therefore, he had to find a new language to explain it. He realized that the connection between the woman's mind, the dream, and the physical world, the beetle, was not a physical wire. It was a meaning. The bridge was not made of atoms. It was made of significance. Jung realized that we live in two worlds simultaneously. One is the world of causality, where you push a cup and it falls. The other is the world of synchronicity, where two unrelated events occur together in a meaningful way, orchestrated by a hidden order. He began to suspect that numbers were the key to this hidden order. He stopped looking at numbers as merely quantities, how many apples are in a basket, and started seeing them as qualities. Imagine a world where the number 3 isn't just a count of objects, but an atmospheric pressure, a mood, a specific frequency of reality. Jung began to hypothesize that when you see the number 1111, or your birth date, or the same recurring sequence, you are not seeing a quantity. You are seeing the quality of the moment. You are seeing the blueprint of the architecture of time itself. But to prove this, he had to go back to the ancients.
Jung dived deep into alchemy and the teachings of Pythagoras.
Pythagoras, the ancient Greek philosopher, did not believe numbers were just tools for counting cattle. He believed numbers were gods. He believed that the number 1 was the generator of all things, the monad. 2 was the split, the conflict, the duality. 3 was the resolution, the synthesis. Jung realized that the ancients used numbers to describe the state of the universe, not just the contents of it. Because the modern mind had stripped numbers of their soul, we had lost the ability to read the signs. We see a date like 11-11-11 and think calendar. Jung saw a convergence of the archetype of unity. He began to study the behavior of numbers in the unconscious. He noticed that his patients would dream of specific numbers right before major life changes. A man dreaming of the number 4 was often on the verge of achieving wholeness or stability, because 4 represents the square, the earth, the complete foundation. But this wasn't just psychology. It was becoming something dangerous. Jung felt he was staring into the source code of the matrix. If the mind and matter are connected through numbers, then the mind can influence matter. This is where he began to lose his footing with his mentor, Sigmund Freud. Freud believed everything was biological, sex and aggression. Jung believed the universe was a giant mind, and we were thoughts within it. The friction between them was building, and it would lead to an explosion, literally.
The emotional core of this story is the breakup between Freud and Jung. It was a father-son relationship doomed to fail. In 1909, Jung visited Freud in Vienna. They were arguing about parapsychology. Freud dismissed it as nonsense, calling it the black tide of mud of occultism. Jung felt a physical heat rising in his chest. His diaphragm became tight. He felt a burning sensation of truth that Freud was rejecting. Suddenly, a loud report, like a pistol shot, rang out from the bookcase next to them. Freud jumped, startled. Jung looked at him, eyes wide with the intensity of his conviction, and said, "There, that is an example of a catalytic exteriorization phenomenon." Freud cried out, "That is sheer bosh." Jung, possessed by a strange certainty, replied, "It is not. To prove my point, I now predict that in a moment there will be another such loud report." And exactly as he said it, bang, a second explosion detonated in the wood of the bookcase. Freud stared in horror. There was no physical cause. The wood had not split. It was the tension of their psychic conflict manifesting in physical reality. Because the emotional energy was so high, it warped the material world. Therefore, Jung proved to himself that high emotion states, archetypal moments, act as magnets for synchronicity. This is why you see signs or numbers most often when you are in distress, in love, or in transition. The numbers aren't random. They are attracted to your emotional gravity.
Jung knew that psychologists wouldn't believe him. He needed a physicist. Enter Wolfgang Pauli, one of the pioneers of quantum mechanics and a Nobel Prize winner. Pauli was a man of hard science, but he was suffering. He was drinking heavily, and his life was falling apart. He came to Jung for help. What happened next is one of the greatest intellectual partnerships in history. Pauli was famous for the Pauli effect, a running joke in the physics world that whenever Pauli walked into a lab, delicate equipment would break for no reason. Jung realized this was not a joke, it was synchronicity. Pauli carried such intense unconscious chaos that it disrupted the order of machines. Together, they worked to bridge the gap between physics and psychology. They became obsessed with the number 13.7. In physics, the fine structure constant is approximately 1 over 13.7. It is a fundamental number that dictates how light interacts with matter. In Kabbalah and mysticism, 137 also holds geometric value related to Kabbalah itself. Pauli and Jung spent years exchanging letters, trying to understand why this number appeared in the deepest structure of the atom and the deepest structure of the mind. They concluded that matter and psyche are two sides of the same coin. Numbers are the hinge that connects them. When you see a number repeating, you are standing at the hinge. Jung needed a tool to test this. He found it in the ancient Chinese book of divination, the I Ching. The I Ching works on the principle of randomness, throwing coins or yarrow stalks to generate a number, which then corresponds to a chapter of wisdom. To the Western mind, this is chance. To Jung, this was a way to take a snapshot of the quality of the moment. He experimented by asking the I Ching about his own patients. He found that the answers were impossibly accurate. The numbers generated by the coins mirrored the exact psychological state of the questioner. He realized that the fall of the coins was not random. The coins were falling into the pattern of the moment, just like the beetle hit the window. Jung realized that numbers are the rhythm of the cosmos. If you know the rhythm, you can predict the melody. He called this absolute knowledge, knowledge that exists in the unconscious, independent of the brain. When you throw the coins or look at the clock, you are inadvertently accessing this absolute knowledge. The number you see is a reflection of your current vibration. If you keep seeing 444, the universe is not sending you a text message. The universe is showing you that your vibration is currently tuned to the frequency of 444, protection and guidance. You are in resonance with that archetype. This leads us to Jung's grandest concept, the unus mundus, or one world. Jung believed that before the universe split into mind and matter, it was one unified reality. In this unified reality, there is no difference between a thought and a thing. They are the same substance. Synchronicities are momentary glimpses of this original unity. Imagine the universe is a giant, ornate Persian rug. We are tiny bugs crawling on one thread. We see a red thread, then a blue thread, then a red thread again. We think, oh, it's a coincidence that I see red again. But if we could pull back and see the whole rug, we would see the pattern. The rug is designed. The numbers are the knots in the rug. When you experience a synchronicity, like thinking of an old friend and then they call you, it is because for a split second, the veil between mind and matter lifted. You touched the unus mundus. Jung argued that this experience is numinous. It feels religious. It gives you goosebumps. That physical reaction is your body recognizing the truth. You are not alone. You are part of a massive, interconnected organism. The numbers are the pulse of that organism.
But there is a darker side to this. Not all synchronicities are positive. Jung warned that the unconscious is not always your friend. It is a force of nature. If you are repressing something, if you are ignoring your shadow, the universe will force you to see it. We often hear people say, I keep seeing 666, or I keep seeing the date of my accident. Jung would say this is the shadow knocking on the door. Just like the beetle tapped on the window, these negative numbers are trying to break into your conscious mind. They are alerts. They signify that there is an imbalance in your psyche that requires attention. Because you are ignoring the internal problem, it must manifest as an external fate. Jung famously said, when an inner situation is not made conscious, it appears outside as fate. If you refuse to deal with your anger, you will meet angry people. If you refuse to deal with your chaotic thoughts, you will see chaotic numbers or experience bad luck. The numbers are a mirror. If you don't like the numbers you are seeing, you don't need to change the clock. You need to change your mind. You need to integrate the shadow.
Here, I must provide a critical warning, one that Jung himself struggled with. There is a fine line between synchronicity and madness. It is called apophenia, the tendency to perceive meaningful connections between unrelated things. If you start thinking that every license plate is a message from God, you are not enlightened. You are paranoid. You are dissolving. Jung saw this in his psychotic patients. They saw meaning everywhere, to the point where they could not function. The difference between a mystic and a psychotic is that the mystic swims in the same waters the psychotic drowns in. The key to true numerology and synchronicity is the emotional impact. A true synchronicity strikes you to the core. It changes you. It has a numinous quality. It is rare. If you are forcing it, if you are hunting for 1111 every time you check your phone, you are creating false patterns. You are forcing the lock. Jung taught that we must wait for the universe to speak, not scream at it to answer. We must hold the tension of the opposites. We must be rational enough to live in the world, but open enough to see the signs.
So, where does this leave us? We have traveled from the tapping of a beetle on a window pane to the structure of the atom. We have seen that Jung challenged the cold, mechanical view of the universe and replaced it with one of meaning and magic. The next time you see a repeating number, stop. Don't just Google what it means. Feel the moment. What were you thinking right before you saw it? What is the quality of time right now? The universe is knocking on your window. It is telling you that you are on the path, or perhaps that you have strayed from it. Carl Jung risked his reputation to give us this map. He showed us that we are not isolated fragments in a dead cosmos. We are living in a conversation. The numbers are the language. The synchronicities are the voice. The question is, are you listening? If you want to understand the specific code that was imprinted on you at the moment of your birth, the numbers that define your personal archetype, there is a way to go deeper. But for now, just watch the windows. Watch the clocks. The beetle is trying to get in.